All right, we're back. It is COMP1073, and we are in the winter 2017 semester at Georgian, and we are week 1, part 3 of our broadcast. We just finished talking about GitHub and putting it up to GitHub. And I was going to talk about Bootstrap next, right? And I'm going to talk about Bootstrap today and next day and the next day and the next day for the next several days, because there's no way you can possibly learn the Bootstrap framework in a day. It's impossible. There's just too many parts to it, right? However, we can start off on a good track. 1, click Getting Started, right? Under Getting Started, you can see that they have a very nice kind of example page, right? And this is a great spot to start off. You can see that it has the viewport tags that I've asked, plus an additional one, this one here, which is good for IE and Edge. So I'm going to copy that one, I'm going to steal that one right from Bootstrap and put that right into my code. So if I go back to my index.html, you can see that there's another one, another meta tag that I can put in there, which is this one. It kind of makes my application compatible with Edge. And I think it's a good practice, right? Next. Notice that I have some links. One of them is a link to the Bootstrap CSS Framework, right? I don't have that file right now, and I want to be able to get it, right? So there's 2 ways you can do this. I can manually hand bomb this file. I can go in here and download Bootstrap, and then I can put it into my files. But that is primitive. We don't do that anymore, right? What I want to use is a package manager like NPM, Node Package Manager, to get Bootstrap. But there's another better one called Bower, right? B-O-W-E-R, okay? So Bower is very interesting in that it's a package manager for the web, like it says. And what it does is it allows us to get things like libraries that exist. Instead of us going manually downloading it and installing it into our website, which is primitive, like I said, because I can make mistakes. If I download something and put it in the wrong place, it may not work, right? But if I get it from Bower, it's going to have everything, everything that I need, the latest version, so I don't have to go to each individual site. Imagine if I was doing it by hand. For me to install Bootstrap, I need jQuery. I need to go get jQuery. Then I got to go get Bootstrap. And then there's other piece parts that I got to get too. Why? I can make it easier with Bower. In order for me to use Bower, though, I need to install it globally, right? So there's a little command, npm install Bower -d, right? I'll do it with you so you can see what happens. If I install Bower, right, it's going to give me the latest version, which is 1.8.0, right? Now again, look at all the stuff I've installed today, right? npm, there's Node, we did Light Server, now we're doing Bower. Guys and girls, it's continuing. Why? Because the web is the most difficult platform to develop for, and tools continuously change, right? And we're going to learn more and more stuff as we go. And you might like, I need all this stuff to learn JavaScript? No, but it would be remiss of me not to show you, because that means that I can show you in a vacuum how to use JavaScript, but you've never used JavaScript. So if you go to an interview and they say, so when you put your files up on the web, how do you do it? And you say, I use FTP. They're like, really? You use FTP still? Right? And you're like, but is there another way? Yes, of course, GitHub. Anyways, we'll talk about that. So that's why I'm showing you all these little technologies, and it's going to help you with your other courses. So if you've done it with Rich, you said you've done it with Rich already, some of you, fantastic, right? Rich and I both introduced GitHub at the very beginning of every course we do, right? And it's important for you to get that, because that's how important it is in the industry. Again, one of the major questions they ask you is, do you use version control in an interview? And show me your your GitHub repo. Show it to me. Show me the stuff that you've done on GitHub. This is the actual code. You can't lie. Right? There it is. This is me, right? Okay, so now that we've done that, we've installed Bower. I'm going to clear the screen for a second. And on the Mac, it's clear. On Windows, it's CLS. And when I do this, I'm going to say, now I want to use Bower, but I have to prepare my project a little bit for me to use it, right? So inside my project files, in the root of my folders, make sure you're not in any other folder, okay? So I'm clicking down here somewhere. I'm going to right-click and insert a new file. Here's my new file. And I'm going to include a .bowerrc file. Okay, so it starts with .bowerrc. Okay. What it is, Bower is actually, it's a control file for Bower, right? It's a configuration file that allows me to tell Bower where I'm going to put all my libraries that I'm going to download, right? So instead of it going to the default location for all Bower libraries that I get through the package manager is a really large, ugly directory called Bower_components, which makes no sense. It's really ugly. I want all my stuff to go into scripts. That's where I want all my things to come. Any library that I download, I want it to come into my scripts folder. And I want it to come into a subfolder called lib for library, right? So that's what I'm going to do here in Bower. So in Bower RC, so here's my Bower RC file. I'm clicked onto this thing. Here's my configuration. I'm going to use 2 curly braces. And then I'm going to press Control Space in Visual Studio Code, which is going to give me this these options, right? And I'm going to space down until I find directory. And then I press Enter. And now I can configure my directory for Bower to point to a specific location. And I want it to point to scripts lib. And then save that. So now anytime I pull something down with the Bower package manager, it's going to go into scripts lib, right? That's where it's going to install, right? Otherwise, it's just going to put it into Bower components, and I hate that. Okay, that's number 1. 2, I need to initialize Bower if I'm going to keep track of all my dependencies for my project, right? Now again, you might say, do I really need all this stuff for JavaScript? In my world, yes, you do, right? In someone else, they might teach you, no, you don't. You can use Visual Studio. It's 70 million lines of code. Go ahead, right? You won't know what you're doing, but it's okay, right? So inside the command line now, what I want to do is I want to run Bower init, right? Bower init. And what Bower init does is it runs a little wizard, right, in the command line, a little batch file, right? And the batch file tells, hey, this is the name of my project. Here's my description, you know, a demo app for lesson 1, right? My main file, if I have any, I don't have any. Keywords, if I want to add them in. For example, JavaScript, I can add that as a keyword, right? My author, which is me, right? This information is pulled from my Git information because I've, on my command line, yours may not pop up like this because unless you install your credentials on your command line, it won't understand who you are. So it knows who I am. And license, if there's any, MIT, I'll accept that. And my homepage for my repository, that's fine. And do I want to set my currently installed components as dependency? Sure, right? Nothing's really installed. And add commonly ignored files to ignore file list? Sure. And press yes again. I'm just accepting it all. Looks good? Yes, it does. And what this little wizard does for you is it adds in this bower.json file into your files. That's what it does. So here's my bower.json. It's almost a configuration file for your web, like your web project, okay? Do I need this configuration file to run the web project? Nope, I do not. If I didn't have it in there, it's not going to hurt me. However, if I want to keep track of all my dependencies, like Bootstrap and jQuery and anything else I download, I want to have this file. This file is going to be the place where it's going to keep track of all my dependencies. When I share it with you, if you do a Bower install, it'll download all the dependencies for my project exactly how I downloaded them into your folder, so you can have the exact same experience that I do. All right, now back on the command line. Okay, I'm going to clear the screen. Again, don't worry about this if you can't get it all. It's recorded, right? So you can go do it. I recommend after this for homework, go do it for yourself at home. Try this whole step-by-step. Watch the video, fast forward, because that's what we do when we watch videos. Watch me at 1.5 times speed. I'm going to sound like a chipmunk, right? Then you're going to get to the point where you want to stop it and keep doing it until you get this piece, right? All right, now, here we go. I'm going to go Bower. This is going to be very familiar to you. It's going to look very similar to NPM. Bower install, right? And then the component that I want first, which is jQuery, right? Now, I can specify a version of jQuery because all libraries on jQuery have a specific version. And I want to specify that my library for jQuery is at 2.2.4. Then I want to end it off with --save. Let me explain this for a second. Bower install. Install is the action word to install new components into my project, right? jQuery is the library that I'm getting, right? And when I use the @ symbol, I'm saying get it at this version, 2.2.4. There's a reason for this, by the way. The latest version of jQuery is 3.1, right? 3.1 is incompatible with Bootstrap. So please don't get that, right? If you just put Bower install jQuery -save, it's going to take the latest version of jQuery. All right, -- save says, hey, save the fact that I need jQuery inside my Bower JSON file. So listed here as a dependency. Okay, let's try it out. So boom, goes out, grabs jQuery, and returns. And notice that it lists it here as a dependency in my bower.json file, right? And at the same time, inside my scripts folder, here's my lib folder, and here's jQuery, all my files. That's way smarter to do than to go to jQuery, download it, install, drag it into the files, and so on. Let's do it again for Bootstrap, okay? So again, I'm going to kind of do the same thing. I'm going to say Bower, install, Bootstrap. And then for this one, I'm not going to specify a version, -- save, and press enter. Now it's going to ask me, it should ask me a question. It should say, hey, are you sure you want to install, jQuery? Usually it asks you that question. And if it doesn't, it found jQuery. Take a look, right? It found jQuery as a dependency, right here, and it's showing that jQuery 2.2.4 is required for Bootstrap to function. Cool. Now let's take a look. Both jQuery and Bootstrap are listed as dependencies, right, inside my bower.json file. Okay, that's what you should have right now. And inside my scripts folder, you should have a lib folder that has both jQuery, right, and, oh man, where's Bootstrap? Well, sometimes what happens is with the lib folder, you need to refresh, right? And sometimes it'll come up now. There's Bootstrap. Okay, now, how do I include this in my files? And why am I doing all this work anyway? Because we're kind of nearing the end of our day today, right? I just wanted to talk about configuration, right? Well, I want to include it before my app.css, my bootstrap.css, that's for sure. So I'm going to do one of these. I'm going to say link. Actually, I'm just going to copy this whole thing. Put it up here. Don't worry if you don't get everything. We're going to do this again and again. It's not the last time. Going to go to Bootstrap. Going to go to dist for distribution. Going to go to CSS. And I'm going to grab this bootstrap.min.css. This is the minified version of the style sheet. Copy it, the path, and I'm going to slap it into here like this. I'm going to kind of paste it in. Now notice I get a bunch of extra stuff. I don't need this stuff, anything before the /scripts folder, because that's only for me. If I give you my files, it would never work for you. So it has to be like this, scripts lib. Why? Because I'm going to the scripts folder, into the lib folder, into the bootstrap folder, into the dist folder, into the CSS folder, into the bootstrap.min.css file. Whew. Looks complex, but really it's not. It's just finding the file that I'm looking at. All right, so I've got my CSS file right here. Don't worry if you didn't get it. I'm going to put it up on GitHub in a second. Okay, next, now that I got my GitHub, in order for me to make my Bootstrap, in order for me to make Bootstrap work 100%, I need jQuery and bootstrap.js installed down here, right? So I'm going to copy this line a couple times. Okay, and I'm going to put jQuery first up here, and then Bootstrap here. Okay, again for jQuery, if I look at my lib folder, it's jQuery dist. If I right-click, I can get the path, copy path. And then I want to just drop it into here like this and remove all of my local elements that doesn't make any sense for you. Like, for example, anything before the scripts folder. Like, I don't care about users, Thomas, desktop. You may not have that on your machine. You probably won't, right? So that's the actual path, scripts, lib, jQuery, dist, jQuery.min.js, in my case, okay? And then the same thing goes with Bootstrap. If I go to Bootstrap, and if I go to dist, and if I go to JS, I want to grab this file, bootstrap.min.js, copy it, copy the path, go in here, and paste it in. And then again, just get rid of anything before the scripts folder. So now your files should look like this. I'll leave it up for a second so you can see it, and also record it a little bit on the website, on YouTube. Okay, why? Why did I include my Bootstrap first and then my app.css? Because my app.css has to come after Bootstrap in order for me. If I make any custom CSS, it has to come after. Remember, cascading style sheets work in the way that it goes in cascade order, right? So the last style sheet takes precedent. My style sheet, my custom style sheet. Now, there's nothing in here, right? But if I was going to put any custom CSS, it would be there. Okay, cool. And these two pieces, I need jQuery for sure, 100%, right? And I need bootstrap.min.js, those two JavaScript libraries, in order for me to make JavaScript work, or Bootstrap work for JavaScript. Someone's dying to get to me. All right, now the test. To make this all work, I want to surround my H1 and my paragraph tag with a div tag with a class of container. Let's try this out. This is the first Bootstrap class we're going to learn, container. So we're going to say div with a class of, that's what the dot stands for, class of container. Then press tab. I'm going to take these files, or these lines of code here, cut them, and paste them into here. There's other ways of doing that, by the way, which I'll show you later on. Okay, now, when I do this, I've updated my folder so that it shows that the H1 tag and the paragraph tag are inside a div tag with a class of container. The class of container is going to hit the Bootstrap style sheet. That's where it's defined, and it's going to style my H1 tag and my paragraph tag as a result. Okay, so I'm actually tapping into the built-in class that Bootstrap has to style my code instead of making my own styles, because it's not a CSS course. All right, let's check it out. So I'm going to go to Light Server now. So clear this up. Light-server, and then we're going to go. And now you can see that not only do I have Goodbye Cruel World, right, but I also have a little bit of styling. The font style has changed, and I have my margins have changed considerably. It's now, you can see that Goodbye Cruel World and everything else I've put is in the middle. That's Bootstrap. And we're going to do more with Bootstrap later on. Okay. Let me put this up to GitHub. How do I push this to GitHub now? Last piece, and then I'm going to kind of do a summary, right? Clear. I'm inside my folder. I'm going to push to GitHub now, like I did up there on the Blackboard. So I'm going to do this first. Now that I've made changes, I'm going to say git add dot. I want to add all my changes to the staging area. There's a lot of changes I made just now, right? Number one. Two, I need to make a commit message, a friendly message that's going to be applied to my snapshot. My friendly message is going to be the commit. And the message name is going to be added Bootstrap to project. Right? That's my commit message. And it's going to be tied to all the files that I'm adding into my repository now, the new files, right? And any changes I made to the old files, like index.html. Now, after I've done git add dot and git commit -m, I've made a snapshot of my files. I want to push it to the remote folder on the cloud, right? And I'm going to say git push, right? Origin master. So I'm pushing to the origin remote. That remote has a name. It's called origin, right? And I'm pushing it to the master branch. I can push it to any branch I want. I can create new branches. We'll talk about branching later on a little bit, but it's going to go to master branch and press enter. And if I've done everything correctly, then it's going to take my files and put them up to GitHub. And now what you're going to see if you go to my GitHub repository, if I refresh, 2 commits, because that's how many I have. And if I go to my code, you can see that I got a bunch more code in there. So I've put this up for you guys to try it out. If your code doesn't look like my code by the end, I want you to, when you go home and do your homework, check it out. See if you can see what I did differently than you, if yours doesn't look like mine, okay? You can follow the video step by step. This is important. This is the foundational stuff that we're going to be doing. I'm going to be doing this over and over again, right? When we build up our apps with JavaScript. Today, as a review, I want you to remember 3 things, right? GitHub. There's 3 parts of GitHub, right? Why are we doing GitHub? Backup, collaboration, right? And version control. There's 3 layers that we want to take care of. And we want to do it in this order. Structure first. Of course, structure has to be tied with content. Presentation from our CSS. And the last part, is behavior with our JavaScript. We only add JavaScript at the last moment when we need the behavior to happen that we can't master with CSS. And by the way, we can do a lot with CSS nowadays, way more than we could ever do before, right? That's what we want to do with JavaScript. We did one JavaScript command, right? If you remember, the first command we did, and we talked about best practices for JavaScript as we always put JavaScript, a link to JavaScript at the bottom of our files because it's blocking. If any of these things fail, it'll block the operation of our code. It will not produce our content, right, if we put it at the top. And then we always make our JavaScript files function in a separate folder and in a separate file, right, from an organizational perspective, right? The only command we have today is console.log, which prints to the command line when it's accessed. Questions? This is day one, right? Day two will be a little easier. We'll have less setup, and we'll be able to do more. Guys, thank you so much. We'll see you next week. Remember, next week we're going to do assignment number 1, right? And I'm going to try and give you as many assignments as I can so you have everything you need for the rest of the semester. Thank you.